From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Danda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. Dear friend, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Superpower School podcast. I'm your host, Paddy Danda, and on today's show, I have an amazing guest. I have Laura Brandenburg, who is an internationally recognized leader who helps mid-career professionals start and thrive in business analysis careers. She is the founder of Bridging the Gap, author of The Value-Driven Business Analyst and How to Start a Business Analyst Career, and creator of the Business Analyst Blueprint training program. With over 20 years of experience, Laura is passionate about building the profession one business analyst at a time and empowering others to achieve confidence and success. Wow. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me here, Patty, to have a conversation today.
Oh, you're welcome. And I love that little tagline you've got in your bio, which is sort of, helping one business analyst at a time, because I think a lot of BAs out there could do with a lot of help right now. There's just so much uncertainty, I think, in terms of the AI world that we're living in, and having that support, I think, is really important.
Yeah. And, I have started to think about my career that way back, because there's so many people doing such great work systemically, right? And as a profession. And that never really felt like my space. Of course, anything you do influences the whole profession. I was like, no, I'm grassroots, built from the ground up, kind of help people one at a time. And that affects cool well. So I think we need both. But my capacity or my kind of way of being in the world is more of an individual, one by one kind of approach.
Oh, nice. And in terms of the superpower you're bringing to this episode, could you share that with us?
Yeah, I think what we're here to talk about today is becoming a more valued business analyst and really taking the best of business analysis and what we need to achieve in terms of business and organizational outcomes and merging those together.
Oh, brilliant. And that is the title of your new book as well.
Which I do have. It's still a review copy.
Oh.
It's early, so it's got this gray bar, but it's coming. And I'm sure by the time this is live, it'll be available.
Brilliant. And Laura, just in case anyone in, I guess, the BA field and beyond hasn't come across your work before, could you tell us a little bit about what you do in terms of your background?
Sure. I got started as a business analyst at one point, moved into several different business analyst roles, was a director of BA project management and QAT, and then moved into business analysis consulting, which is when I started Bridging the Gap, where I started to do overtime. It wasn't originally designed to be a training company. I was just out blogging and wanting to do a little bit more consulting. People kept asking me, how do I get started? Where do I build the skills? And so I started offering training. And so for the last 15 years or so, we've been foundationally a training company online for helping them build their skills and really add more value. So that's about me and what I do.
Oh, brilliant. And I think I came across your work for the first time on YouTube because you're an avid YouTuber as well. How did that come about?
The YouTube channel itself? Yeah, I recorded I still remember my first video when my office was in the guest bedroom and the bed was behind me. And I did a few videos because it was sort of the thing. And then I didn't touch the channel for almost 10 years. And I had been writing blog posts for that period of time really regularly. And I just found I sat down to write a blog post and I feel done. I don't know what else to write about from a blog perspective. But then video was really becoming a bigger thing. And so I started to go back and take some of those blog posts and turn them into videos. Of course, as you do that, you're revising them. So really the channel picked up momentum. I got a bit tired of writing, and video gave me a new creative outlet. And ended up allowing us to reach people who prefer video content, which is so obvious now, but 6, 7 years ago, it wasn't kind of as mainstream as it is.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you stuck with it because, yeah, otherwise I probably wouldn't have come across your
Yeah.
work.
Like not
So,
everybody reads, right? Or reads regularly
yeah.
blogs. Yeah.
And like this is a new book you're launching. So, I have so much respect for anyone that's written a book because there's just so much commitment that's needed. There's so much discipline that's needed. What made you write a book? Was there something inside of you that was telling you need to write this book? Like, what was the moment that you decided you have to do this?
Yeah. I have been talking about writing this book or thinking about writing it for probably over 5 years. And it always was like, there's something else that needs to be done in a business first, right? I need to figure this piece out or that piece out. Like, it's not the time, or I don't have the time, because it's a huge commitment of effort. And there was a point where I realized, like, I had really the way that I teach business analysis had crystallized, and it was time to reach that message with more people. And there was enough space that I had in the business and in the work I do, and in the rest of life, to really allocate and set aside the time to make it happen. And it feels like it still feels like there's something next beyond the book. Like, until I write the book, I can't get to whatever the next thing is. And so it really became like this milestone of like, I got to finish this. I got to get this out into the world, and see what it's supposed to lead to. I don't know what that is. I'm excited to be on the journey.
And that's amazing because sometimes it is actually okay not to know where you're going and to let I guess the ether figure it out for us, and then we end up in places we never knew. So that's amazing. It's like this podcast. I had no idea I'd be speaking to such awesome people, and it just started off as a bit of a hobby to start with, and I had no game plan. There was no end game to it. It's just evolved as I've gone along, and I think sometimes they're the best journeys because things happen, don't they, naturally?
Yeah. And when you follow that spark of like, there's a reason, even if I don't know the reason, like, but you can kind of feel into the intention and the importance of it, even if you don't see the whole picture. Similar, I would think, with a podcast like this. Like, it's important. Like, I've got to do it for some reason, even though I don't see exactly all of it.
Yeah. And the book is aimed at business analysts, I assume. For anybody out there who either isn't a business analyst or is thinking about the career of business analyst, what do business analysts actually do? Like, could you define that for us?
Yeah. So there are so many definitions of business analysis. And I think that's one of the most challenging aspects definitely for people who are looking to start a business analyst career, because you start to look at different job title or different jobs with the title, and they're completely different. And like, what does a business analyst do? And even in the context of the book, one thing that has surprised people is I focus on a business analyst who works on a software project or a software change of some sort. And so I don't want to constrain business analysis as a profession as really any professional that's enabling change in an organization, which is so broad, so empowering, but at the same time, it's easy to get lost in that definition of like, if I'm enabling change, like where do I fit in an organization? So by really narrowing it down, at least for this book, and looking at what does it mean to be value driven in the context of leveraging software, which does not mean you're only focused on the software requirements. It really means you're looking at what problem are we trying to solve? How does this fit into the business context? How does the software fit into the business context? And then how does it ultimately deliver the organization? So that's what I would define as the BA role with the software space.
It's really ironic because this week I had the pleasure of meeting one of our sales teams. So for the organization that I work for, and they were based up in Leeds in England, and they invited me along to talk about business analysis because they wanted to understand it a bit more so that they can talk to the clients in the right way. And that was the question they asked me. They said, like, define it for us. And, who should we be really speaking to in an organization. And, I really struggled with it because I think just for the same reason you've said there, we sometimes have these very generic definitions. Like if I think about UX designers, they have quite a specific purpose, right? It's to make the user experience great. Like that in its essence is what their focus is on. But if I tell somebody as a business analyst, I analyze the business, what on earth does that mean? Like you sit there with a magnifying glass all day? Like what do you actually do? And so I think for me, the profession could have really done with some more specific branding, I think, along the way. But equally, that could constrain things as well. Like some people would go, well, that means I'm then put into a certain box, and I wouldn't want to be in that box. So I don't think you can win with it. But I personally have loved a little bit more of a specific definition, I think.
Yeah, a little more. And people, that's actually the very first step of a process I teach in the book is to clarify your role, right? So because it is so different, and I have made so many mistakes in my career of not being clear on what my role was and what it wasn't, that taking some time to make sure in this project, on this team, in this organization, that I'm clear about the outcome is the first thing of being value driven and not trying to do somebody else's job, but also not missing part of the role that people are expecting you to do, which may be completely different than the last team you were on. So the big piece.
And when did you first come across business analysis, and when did you kind of discover this was your superpower?
Yeah, so I, like so many people, stumbled into the role. So I was in quality assurance first. That was my first IT role. And we had a team of systems analysts in that organization. And one day, one of the systems analysts was like, you really should apply for a role on our team. And I was like, busy in QA. And she said, it's the great job. It's more money. It's more responsibility. Like this would be a great career move. So it really got me thinking. But even then, we did not think we were a profession. We thought we were this sort of made up role that our organization needed because something was dysfunctional about our organization. And there was this surprise moment. Which people are like teaching other people how to do this. And the senior person on our team took a class on how to do use cases, came back and was like, other people are doing the same work in other organizations. And at that time, it was around the time that IMEA was being formed. But we hadn't heard of that yet. I didn't hear about that until my next role. And that's when I advocated for the title of business analyst. And, learned that there was a profession. But until that time, we're just systems analysts in this like little role that kind of makes sense for what we're doing.
And that's amazing. I often do hear a lot of people who have been doing a certain role
Yeah.
and they haven't been called a business analyst, but then they go on the training and they come back and say, wow, I didn't know that that's what I was called, right? And because they had been badged as something else for many, many years, and they all of a sudden realize that there's a name for that.
Yeah.
And business analysis. So it's always really interesting to see, how people are kind of doing this in a role, and they just have never had the title in the past. So it's kind of interesting.
The recognition, the sense of a skill set, right? And so, we have people come through our programs who've been doing it for decades and time. So I don't know if I'm doing it right because I've never, I just figured it out as I went along.
So could you explain the title of the book? Because you use this term value driven, and why did you choose that? And what does it mean?
Yeah, the title of the book was one of the last pieces to follow. For a long time, the working title was How to Be a High Performing Business Analyst. And I decided on value driven because BAs tend to be less self-centered. I don't want to they tend to be less self-promotional and more focused on what do other people in the organization need? What does my organization need? And so there was a point when I realized that high performing BA was not going to be as like hooky or like as good of a hook to the people that I want to help as something that would help that give value versus receive value. Right. So that was a piece. But what it really means, I think, to be a value driven BA is to be focused on organizational outcomes, always be asking why, understanding the big picture, looking at the objectives. So making sure the whole project or change or whatever it is that you're working on is focused on those outcomes, but also within the context of our work, what's the real goal? Like, what is the role that I'm fulfilling? What do I need to do to achieve clarity, alignment, and help people make decisions versus kind of a traditional focus the role on documentation and deliverables, right? So making sure that we're choosing the right techniques at the right time to facilitate that next decision and try to unhook from the traditions of perfectionism and analysis paralysis and like really help be the one who builds momentum on the project. So that's the big promise or the big idea behind value driven.
Yeah, I love that. So it is about really sort of looking at yourself and saying, what more could I do to be useful for this organization?
Or what
Right.
less? Sometimes it's like, what less? Like, what am I doing that's, you know, um, not adding value, right? One of the things I talk about in the book is how much time do you spend like perfecting the lines on your visual model while that model is still a draft, right? Before you've even gotten any stakeholder feedback. And so really proposing like, how can you create the quick model possible to have a conversation versus the most perfect looking model that you're then resistant to change and feels like it has to be right. So that's, a bit of a mindset shift to be how is this going to add value versus what is it that I need to do to make sure and all the pieces are in place.
That's a great example. There's a great TED talk by Tom Wojcik. It's about how to make toast. He talks about this experiment that he's run with lots of different groups, and he gets people to use Post-it notes to describe the process of making toast. And he does different variations. In one, he gets people to individually draw or write out these steps and actually work on their own. In other instances, he gets them to work in teams. And the interesting thing is, like you say there, when you're just using basic analog stuff that has very little friction, so it's easy for people to pick up and use, we'll collaborate a lot more. We will discuss things a lot more. As opposed to if one person pulls up Visio and they start putting these digital boxes on the screen, there's almost this assumption from people to go, well, they've digitized this. That surely that must mean that they've got the answer. Like it's too polished for us to mess about with now, right? And we see that often, don't we? When we see a PowerPoint presentation, we're scared to criticize it because you think, oh, they put a lot of work into that. That must be right.
It has to be right, right? Like,
yeah. So I think that's a great tip for people to, just think about the tools you're using and actually don't get so fixated on them, because that's another one I often hear BAs say, right, we're going to write some requirements. What tool are we using? And they get so like hung up on that, and it can almost then divert the attention. So if I give you a hypothetical example of somebody out there, they're in a team and they're doing kind of good BA work. They're functional. They're doing a good job. What could be some ways that they can then use the book to help them elevate their offering? So how can they add that value? What are maybe 2 or 3 things that anybody could pick up and do?
yeah. So what I found from most BAs that are doing good work is they tend to feel like they have this intuitive ability to do the good work. Every project is a bit different, which of course is true. Every project is different. Um, and I had to realize this as I was building. So the foundations of the book is an 8-step business analysis process that starts with the getting oriented part we talked about, all the way through assessing value. And so what I see is when people read that, their first reaction is every project is different. This can't possibly apply to me. And then as they step through it, they realize, oh, when I'm doing my best work, I am actually going through these steps for the most part. But sometimes I kind of forget this step or that step. So I think the very first thing is just to allow for a structured process to hold you and to use that to realize what are the places where I'm adding the most value and where are the places where sometimes I kind of forget to do it because I take shortcuts or just get caught up in the moment, right? So just allowing that structured process to hold you along the way. One of the best things that I see people do is, or one of the techniques that I think anybody could probably apply quite quickly would be process maps. So are you looking at the big picture? Even when somebody just wants a report or wants to add a field to the page, right? How does that fit into their process? So often what BAs find is when they take a step back, the solution that somebody's proposing isn't actually the solution that's going to solve the problem. So just taking that moment, even if it's on a whiteboard or sticky notes, right? To how does this whole, like, where does this VL fit into what process and why? And using that as a starting point would be another great tip. Looking to just add that nuance to their work.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I'm a big fan of anything visual. And I think most process maps are super, super cool. I'd love to show you what my son did the other day, actually. Let me see if I can put it on the camera. So on that whiteboard, he's only 13, and for his school project, he had to come up with a process flow. And this was me and him brainstorming some stuff, but he did a lot of the work here. So
That is amazing. So he had a
that's,
small project for a process map. Yeah.
yeah, which is super cool. They had to design an app in Python, but it was all of the design work was also part of the assessment, and he had to kind of really think about the user kind of journey and all of that good stuff. And I thought it was wonderful because 13, if somebody had told me to draw a process map, like I would have been, that would have been life changing. I would have gone, wow, is this something people do for a living? Like, because then I explained it to him. I said, literally everything you're doing is what I would do as a BA.
Yeah.
This is the sort of stuff I would be doing.
I
Right?
have a 13-year-old daughter. Like, why have I never taught her how to create a process map? So
Ask her to draw a process map for making toast and see what she comes up with. And then watch that video. 'Cause
or
it's so
she's
cool.
always complaining about the bus schedule. I'm like, you will be a great business analyst. Go figure out a different process for the bus schedule.
Oh, amazing. Now, I'm intrigued by this 8-step process you
Yeah.
mentioned. Could you just give us a quick run through of
Yeah.
that and maybe just tell us, like, what are the most important parts of that process?
Right. So it starts with getting oriented. So clarifying your role, figuring out who's on the project, what's happened before. The second step is just defining why, discovering the business objectives, getting people aligned on those objectives. And then the third is the scope. So from the why, what is the solution scope that we are going to work on, whether it's for the next 3 months of an agile development process or a more traditional project. Step 4 is the one that people often feel like is not needed, but I think it's maybe the most important for that reason is coming up with your business analysis plan. So whether it's for a specific user story or for a bigger body of work, what are the deliverables that I need to work through as a business analyst to take that high level scope and implement and get the details so that they're clear for the entire implementation team. And it could be a mix of, multiple different techniques or types of requirements, but like making sure you understand that plan and can put some effort and time on your and then, of course, step 5 is going and doing that work, defining the detailed requirements. And step 6 is working with the implementation team. So making sure, like answering questions, supporting them, understanding the architecture one way. Step 7 is working with the business implementation team because so often we see, like the solution gets built and business finds all these random workarounds to do what they think they need to do because they're not trained or don't know how to use the system. And then finally, step 8 is assessing the value and looking back at, did we actually achieve those business objectives with the ROI on what we accomplished? What should we be doing next to continue to improve? I don't know that there's like one step that's, I guess I said step 4, but they're all important. And also like I put them in steps because I think we need to learn how to do them in sequence, but in reality, so often we're in multiple steps at the same time. You might be supporting the team on one set of features and starting to discover the next set, right? So it's not like we do this and then we move on to the next step. Often we're working up on multiple steps, but that structure is kind of that whole one along the trajectory of the initiative.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you for summarizing that so succinctly. I think that really helps to kind of gives a wider understanding of the book. I haven't mentioned the dreaded acronym yet, but I'm going to mention it now. And I think you know what I'm going to say. But this thing called AI apparently is a big thing at the moment. And a lot of people are scared that they all come along and take over the work that they do. So how can we future-proof ourselves as BAs, and how can the book help us in that journey as well?
Yeah, I think BAs need to start, if you have not already. I mean, I'm seeing more and more who are using AI in their work. And if that's not what you're doing yet, like get yourself access to an AI tool, use it for your personal work. I used it to help plan. And we recently took a trip to London last February, and like it helped me put together a whole itinerary of things that we wanted to do. So like use it personally and use it professionally if you can. Inside the book, I have each chapter and each step has different ideas of how you can leverage AI to support you. But I really think the next horizon to be thinking about is, how do we, once we learn how to use AI, how do we help our business stakeholders leverage AI? How do we have a process, put in the AI-enabled solutions to support the business? How does that shift the business process? Where do we need audit, overview and audit that, right? So like really like learning how to use it yourself is the first step, but then thinking about, where does this fit to the business? So, if you don't know what your organization is doing with AI, I would start asking people and see if you can get involved in that project in some way, because I know the BAs can add a ton of value in terms of making sure it serves true business needs and delivers true business value versus becomes just sort of the thing we're doing because it's trendy and sounds good. We want it to actually like be good.
Yeah, and I sometimes think that BAs have a really great opportunity here
Yeah.
to be almost those trusted advisors, but also be the educators within a business, right? So, you could literally just research different AI tools and keep up to date with all of the goings-ons with it. And the most important things, you could then be advising your internal stakeholder, just as you've said there, right, to leverage this stuff. But equally on a project, because as more and more organizations now are going to go on this AI transformation, because let's just put it out there, digital transformation is no longer a cool term because AI is here and everyone wants to do AI transformation now. As part of that journey, those product teams are going to need to understand what are the possibilities with these new tools, and what better role than a BA to be able to come in and say, look, I've been working with these 3 or 4 different language models. I can tell you the ins and outs of which one to use for what purpose. And actually for these requirements, there's all of these other things that we should be thinking about. And I think BAs have a real opportunity to be that kind of educator internally, but we've got to choose whether we want to take that role, right? And it means a lot of work. It means a lot of
learning.
educating yourself. Yeah. But I think your book is perfectly setting people up for that, because ask yourself why. Well, why do you do what you do? And then think about what more you could do, right? Or less, as you mentioned.
Right.
Like, less of this, but more of the other thing.
Yeah. And starting with what value can it add is so critical. And like, we've seen this so many times over the years, right? And we see it still in organizations where we go and buy a tool, whether it's AI enabled or not, right? We buy a solution and then we sort of retrofit how it's going to improve the business. Or we learn the capabilities and then are able to bring those capabilities for value that the business didn't even know that they could use or leverage. You leverage that tool to achieve. So AI is similar. Like once you understand the possibilities, you can start educating. But I think like for so many, it's still like just learning how to use it and not being scared of using it yourself, right? And starting to to gain that competency is a great first step.
And Laura, as we approach time, I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions for ending the show. I didn't give you any pre-warning on this one, so I did lie at the start. I think when I said to you, Laura, there's one standard question I ask everybody, and that's right at the start. I ask for their superpower. But as we wrap up, if you could have any superpower to abolish something in the world of work, or we're going to get rid of this thing, what would that be? Like, what's the thing that gets you really frustrated or angry in the world of work?
I think what gets me frustrated and angry is when this has come out in some of the early conversations around the book where people start like we've talked a lot about business value and profits, right? Profit costs and looking at all that. But like when businesses aren't looking at the entire ecosystem of the value that they create, and I would abolish or create like system where we actually understand a full impact and business is absorbing the full impact. One of my, I don't want to call it a side passion, but it is sort of a side passion to my main work is the sustainability and regenerative space. And when you see how much cost a business is able to transfer out of their business and onto the public, like when it comes to the waste they create or the downstream impacts of their products, right? We're not really paying the full cost of the things that we buy and use every day. And that's a huge detriment to our planet and I think our society as well. I would abolish this sense of containment almost of value.
I'm smiling because it's so ironic you said that. At lunchtime, my daughter said to me, she said, Dad, why do these companies not stop killing the planet? Like, why are they not doing more? And then I gave her a whole lecture on capitalism and how, as CEOs, you're not often incentivized to save the planet. You're incentivized to create profit, and there's that fine line sometimes. And she was like, "Yeah, but that's just wrong, Dad. They're not going to have a planet if they carry on this way." So it's very much that's on the same lines as what you've just talked about there. And it's so ironic you said that because I think it's such an important thing. And for young people, that's what they're thinking as well, right? For her to say that, she's 16 years old, this is what she cares about. I think organizations definitely need to do more in that space.
Yeah, one of the best books that really helped me see it in a systemic way was I've read some books on the circular economy. So she's really interested in that. There's a couple. They're really hard. They're like written like economics books. So it was hard reading, but like that concept of a circular economy where you're taking into account the full life cycle of what you create is a way to transform. And there's a lot we can do pretty easily with public policy to start moving in that direction.
Oh, brilliant. Right. Well, that definitely sounds like a positive move. So let's do that, everybody. Let's focus more on a sustainable sort of business approach. And Laura, where can people find the book? When is it out? And how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so it will officially be published on July 15th. And I'm sure by the time this is live, that will have come and gone. It is available on our website at bridging-the-gap.com/value. And it is up on Amazon in Kindle and print. And I'm working on getting it available through some other retailers as well.
Oh, brilliant. And look, folks, don't worry if you're driving, don't bother taking down that URL. I will leave it in the show notes so you can just click it. So that's not a problem. But yeah, Laura, it's been fascinating. I have really enjoyed this conversation. As I said right at the start, I got to know you through your work on social media, and we've never actually met, I don't think. So this was a great opportunity to finally get to speak to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Likewise, I'm so glad that we got to talk.
It's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please do connect with me via LinkedIn and drop me a message and let me know your favorite takeaways from the episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Superpower School newsletter so that you can be notified of all future episodes. Simply visit the website www.superpowers.school. Thank you once again.